So just how long does it take to play a game of Battletech? That's what we're going to explore in this podcast, and we're going to look at some of the different ways in approaching and setting up your game. For most players, for most of us, the starting point is battle value. This is a calculation for every mech, for various tanks and infantry based on a matrix of tonnage, speed, weapons, what the mech or the vehicle can do, and we come up with a numerical value. So for many of us, we agree on a battle value game that we want to play. 2,000, 3,000, 5,000. In theory, the higher the battle value, the more stuff, the more toys that you get on the table. But given the diversity of mechs out there, literally on one side of the spectrum, we've got a Locust. And on the other side of the spectrum, we've got a Stalker. Obviously, the Stalker has a lot more battle value. But in terms of command and control and initiative and moving the mech, the higher battle value doesn't necessarily mean more complicated. So you can play a 8,000K battle value game of all assault mechs. That game will play much quicker than taking 8,000K of battle value of all light mechs. Just there's more mass, there's more stuff on the table. So that's the first entry point. What is an average Battletech game? You know, this is really, really hard. I've watched a lot of videos on YouTube. I enjoy watching a lot of Battletech videos on YouTube. Naturally, just playing Battletech, I want more toys, I want bigger guns, I want more stuff. So I tend to enjoy playing larger games. But I do realize larger games means having a schedule, a place, a space, a time to commit to those games. A nice, decent-sized game of battle value, I want to say, is about 5,000 battle value points. This is going to give you enough for a lance. It's going to give you enough for some toys. It's going to extend the game a little bit, but not cripple things where if your mech gets taken out, you know, one or two mechs get taken out, you just don't have the model mass to continue. So we start with battle value. I guess I should have started with the rules. What is your level of usability in the rules? And what I mean by that is certainly at this point I've played and enjoy so many different wargaming systems. The only one that 100% has been consistent over the years has been Battletech. Something like Warhammer 40,000, sci-fi miniature game I've been playing since Rogue Trader. And every now and then, even though we're in 8th edition 40K, every now and then just I revert back to some obscure rule set of it, or just kind of have some rule happen, and newer players will be like, Fritz, what are we even talking about? So I say that because we don't have to have the rules memorized, but you want to have a good working flow of how the game is going to work and play out. There are always going to be things that you have to look up. If you're going Total Warfare, which utilizes all the expanded rules for the game, there are times when I want to do something on the tabletop, and I know you can do it in Battletech. If you can think about it, if you've got the tools, if you've got the tactic, if you've got the moxie to do it, you probably can do it. But occasionally we have to look something up on there. That slows the game down a little bit, and that's not a criticism. That's natural. But to really have to look up everything or not understand the phases or the turns of the game, that is going to slow things down. So your first couple of games as you're being pulled into, as I'm literally pulling you into this amazing hobby, this amazing war game, the first 5, 10, 15 games as you're getting up to speed with the rules, they are going to be a little bit slower. Next is victory conditions. And there's a few options here because Battletech is a very interesting game in that it's not broken up into a definitive number of turns. What we see in other wargaming systems that is as an artificial way to create tension and to create momentum and excitement is they limit the game to X number of turns. Look, you have 6 turns to win this mission. If you don't, then that's it. That's the victory. Or you play out X number of turns and whoever is beaten the most loses on there. Battletech, with the exception of a couple of really specialized campaign missions, it's open-ended. It's open-ended in that when does the mission end? When you win the mission goals. So this makes it very tactical because you can be literally approaching one way, you know, the mission goals approaching on the hex map one way, your opponent counters or shifts, does something you don't expect, and you say, this doesn't feel right. I'm not ready. I'm going to pull back to my deployment zone, redeploy, and push forward again. So how tactical you want to play and how far you want to drill down, the game could take a lot longer. It could take a lot less. So I say that balancing it with the battle value, because it's real easy to be like, look, 12K, we're all in, we're going to do this. But is that reasonable to even remotely finish in an average gaming night, given the fact that once you're deployed, you can do whatever you want. You can approach the mission in any way. So now we get into total warfare. For most of us, or a lot of us, the entry point is mech versus mechs. And for a long time, I played Battletech, mechs versus mechs on there. But the game being total warfare incorporates infantry, artillery, vehicles, air support. I mean, there is a lot of stuff. I've yet to play a Navy game, but there is a lot of stuff in there, including infantry and vehicles. Doesn't really slow things down because the rules kind of bolt over very well with the core mech rules, but vehicles and infantry cost less in battle value. So now for the same price of battle value, you have more units to activate, more units to command, a lot more diversity on the table. So I find that once we start adding vehicles and infantry, it's not so much the rules, looking up motive hits and looking up damage results on there. It's more stuff to command on the table. Where things do slow down, as soon as you start putting in dedicated air units, aerospace and things like that, they have a separate turn. They have a separate rule set. They fly extremely fast. I mean, you can, even strafing, you can go across the table. It's amazing just how fast these units move on there. It's another level and another layer of bookkeeping. Again, no criticism on here, but I find for the most part, as soon as you start bolting on dedicated air, the game starts to slow down a little bit, especially if you're going to have 3 or 4 air units in the game where now it's multi-dimensional. Those air support units are not only fighting the mechs on the ground, but you're literally dogfighting and fighting with each other on that level. Side note, you have a large enough collection. You can do Battletech air battles and play and experience the Battletech universe from that perspective, completely on there. The final what if, the narrative. This is where having a role-playing aspect and really trying to immerse yourself in the Battletech universe, it's an option to play. Now, I will say from this perspective, honestly, full disclosure, I'm probably playing Battletech completely wrong. Most of the games we play, even if they're mission-driven, we fight to the bitter end. So my mech's arms are blown off, the leg's about to go, I've taken a hit to the head, so just I'm in that fighting with the mech. I should have withdrawn a long time ago. If we're talking about Inner Sphere, Succession-era wars, I'm not losing my mech. I'm not joining the ranks of the dispossessed. So that doesn't mean I take one laser hit and I run away. But if things go to internals, or if I get a limb blown off, what's that going to cost in C-bills just to fix? I mean, if my mech really gets damaged and I'm on the losing side of the narrative, it might take generations, literally generations, to repair that mech based on parts, based on availability, and based on what kind of mech that it is. So you can immerse yourself and play the game just to the bitter end and last person standing, or you can play the narrative where you force withdraw. And what that means is when your mech gets hit to internals in the center torso, it starts to back out. You have to withdraw off the table. Sometimes in the rules you'll be able to continue to fight and fire. Other times you won't. There might be conditions where on the battlefield tabletop, you take certain hits, you power down, and the understanding is you're allowed to withdraw. There is this idea of futuristic knights on there. If you play that way, it can cut the game down tremendously. The challenge here is now it opens up it opens things up to more of lucky hits, and if you concentrate fire on one mech and go to internals, especially if it's an assault mech or a heavy mech with a lot of guns, a lot of potential, it can essentially force that to withdraw. I mean, it changes the tactics, but it is there. It is considered in the narrative. On the opposite side with the clans, if we're advancing the timeline, well, clan games tend to play much quicker just based on the raw firepower and speed. But there's also this idea of clan honor and engaging. So when you shoot at a mech target as a clanner, you have now engaged that target. You've challenged that target, and you have to destroy it to maintain clan honor. I made a mistake in the previous game, and I say mistake just because we were playing with the narrative, and I really wasn't thinking. I was very eager to start blowing up some mechs. My summoner fired off on a spider, because I'm like, I'm just going to shoot that spider. I'm going to take it out. And as soon as I rolled the dice, there's no taking back. There's no backsies or anything like that. I have now effectively issued that challenge on that mech. So naturally, what did the spider do? Just runs away, spends the whole game running circles around the table. I'm trying to hit it and get a lucky shot on there to kind of free myself from this. But interesting aspects. So there's a core, then followed based on what you want to bolt on or off, and then just how far and how deep you get into the narrative. And the great thing is there is no right or wrong for that. You have your model collection, you have your mech collection. You can explore the different scenarios and the different perspectives of the game absolutely any way that you want.